Welcome. We are the Livingston for All Ages, Township of Livingston. So we are going to move on to our next slide. We'll be discussing how we went through this process, how to start an age-friendly initiative in your community. So I'm going to introduce our director, Jennifer Walker, and she'll start with this first slide.
Good morning. And I learned something new today, how to share my screen. So that's a good thing. Like Liliana said, my name is Jennifer Walker. I'm the Director of Senior Youth and Leisure Services for the Township of Livingston. So we started this process a couple years ago and got tied up in the whole COVID mix, but we have now finished our first year. First, I want to thank the Grata Fund for Senior Care. Without their funding, we would have never had this opportunity to start this initiative and continue the good work that we were doing. We utilized the funding to put out an RFP and hire a consultant, and we ended up going with New Jersey Future, and had the absolute pleasure and privilege of working with Tanya Rohrbach. She is an amazing consultant, and highly recommend her if you ever have that need or that opportunity to do so. So we began the process with creating a steering committee and to lead this process. And it was really important for us to have a committee that kind of reflected our community. So on the steering committee, we had key organizations. We had our senior advisory committee. We had representatives from the town council, from all the township departments, planning, housing departments like that, health department. We had community organizations. We had Livingston volunteers who were instrumental. Steve, Kroll, who were instrumental in leading the committee and really kept everything moving forward. The other thing that we did is we really wanted to make sure that the committee matched our cultural makeup of Livingston. Livingston has our second highest racial minority is Asian, and so Livingston has a 28.8% Asian resident population. So we wanted to make sure that was represented on our steering committee, which it was. And then I just wanted to say real quick before I hand it back over to Liliana, one thing that I think might maybe set us apart a little bit from other organizations or other townships is we've always had a huge, robust senior program offering and services. And Liliana is, I cannot say enough great things about her. She is amazing. I joke all the time that they're going to put a gold statue of her in front of our community center. But we're fortunate enough to have a building where we are can house all of our programming, and we are even more fortunate to have a huge support from our town council, our mayor, and our township administration. They've never said no. They've always been supportive. They've always given us the funds that we need. But having all that great stuff, what we know is that we can always do better. And so the foundation, the Grata Foundation, those funds were able to allow us to do this needs assessment that showed us where our gaps were, which we knew we had, and we found out we had. And even more important than that, gave us the opportunity to start filling those gaps. So with that, I'll hand it over to Liliana.
Thank you, Jennifer. So once we had all those things in place, of course, we developed the needs assessment survey, which we did in conjunction with our steering committee and the consultant, based on the AARP survey, actually, that they offer. They have a baseline survey. So we tweaked it for our town to fit our needs, our community, right? So, but a survey is as good as its distribution. So that was our focus. The next step was really distributing the survey and ensuring that so that we could get a good response. Of course, with that, we have to think that we work diligently with community partners, with volunteers, with our township communications team. And it was important to keep in mind those older adults who did not have technology access. So we submitted almost on a weekly basis. We did a lot of different things. We submitted press releases and ads to our local newspaper, flyers, poster boards. We placed throughout the community. We had them at Town Hall, at the Senior Community Center, at the public library, at the YMCA. And then constant in-person announcements were also at lectures, social events, online, before fitness classes. We made these announcements about the survey. I went to anything in person that was available to do, because you have to remember that we're going back to February and March of this year. So things were still, there were still issues, and there was a spike that we're just getting over COVID, the last variant. So I attended many different programs, I had volunteers that distributed paper copy surveys at different 55+ communities. We put poster boards and we put survey paper boxes in paper copies of the survey at the public library, at the senior community center, at town hall, at the YMCA, where people could put their paper copies if they didn't have access to a computer. We also, Steve Kroll is here, we also attended television programs that were invited to speak about the initiative and the survey. So it was really, we did a town-wide massive public announcement, and we tried to make sure that everybody that knew about the survey. The other thing we really had to do was, because of our community makeup and our large Asian population, we decided that we needed to translate our survey into Chinese. And so we did that. We had one steering committee member that had connections to the Livingston Chinese Association, which they translated the survey. Now that survey, because it was translated, was all manually filled, and that had to be then manually inputted into the English survey. So let me tell you, it was quite the task, but it was needed. Definitely something that it was important. We needed to hear from Chinese older adults, and it was great that we were able to have a contact with their adult children through the Chinese Association and through the member that was on our steering committee. So it was quite the efforts, but I want to tell you there's some pictures here so that you can see we developed this beautiful logo, which now is well known, and we have it on pretty much all our flyers. We made these bags, which was appropriate for the time that, we were switching from plastic bags. So we did a Livingston for All Ages grocery shopping bag. We participated at, when we had Older Adults Month in May, we Aged My Way, and we put those bags out everywhere so that we could spread the word. We attended a YMCA senior in health and wellness fair in May as well. So it was very important in order to spread the word about the initiative as well. But going back to the survey, we had in the end about 1,400 responses, and that, according to our consultant, was really a good target, was really a very good, healthy response ratio for this initiative. So we're very happy with that. But it really took a lot of communication and working with our partners and volunteers. So this is something that I want to reiterate. We couldn't do it without the volunteers and our partners. And communication, as we found out also during our survey results, is key, and trying to approach many different aspects of communication. So I want to move to Steve, because we want to make sure that we have enough time for everybody to ask questions.
Thank you, Liliana. So this next slide deals with compiling the survey results. And as Liliana said, our consultant, NJ Future, indicated that the response of 1,400 was, industry standard. And as with any survey in a large town like Livingston, over 30,000 residents, you're going to have quite a bit of diversity in responses. This was a fairly large number of questions to be answered, but we were really looking for granular information that would really tell us something about how our residents were thinking about the town, and so on. And so I think one of the key parts is, as Jennifer and Liliana have alluded to, we have a very diverse community, and we really wanted to make sure that, diversity, inclusion, equity, advocacy, those cornerstones were really met when we did the survey. And I think we accomplished that. As far as analyzing the data and the survey key findings, Tanya Rohrbach, who Liliana mentioned from NJ Future, summarized a lot of the results. And there were some good takeaways that we're still analyzing, that we will move forward with when we complete the action plan. And I'll just come back to that in a minute. And as a follow-up to the survey, we then had focus groups, because surveys are, they're very important, but you really need to hear from people individually. So the focus groups allowed us, the residents, an informal opportunity to meet and to go through the survey, at a high level, and voice their concerns and really dig a bit deeper about how they felt about certain things. And so that was really important, to have a survey that was really extensive, and then to follow up with smaller, more intimate focus groups, which allowed people to feel free and share their ideas in person, which sometimes doesn't come across in a survey. So those two together, provided us a lot of good information to look at. Just some observations from the summary report, the key findings. I would say here's some takeaways. I think, how has the town's resources, how are they being used, in terms of this new initiative, this age-friendly Livingston? As Jennifer, mentioned, we have some really good resources, and there's been a lot of great programs in the town of Livingston over time. But by going through this exercise, it forced the steering committee to really look at how are those resources being used, and how will they be used going forward with regard to the 8 domains of livability under the World Health Organization and AARP model. So that, that forces you to think a bit. Also, what came out, one of the key findings was, what are the expectations of our senior community, our older adults, in terms of those resources, and where they would like to see improvements, enhancements, changes. And I think just another observation on that is, what is the definition of an older adult or a senior? Because one of the findings was, it seems there's different opinion as to what that actually means. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. I think also we learned that the residents want one central way of communicating to them about the age-friendly initiative going forward. Even though there's many different social platforms, they really would like to have one way to get that information. So that's forcing us to think about, how do we do that? I think another thing that came, key findings, is that there will be continuing evaluation of the survey results, those granular results, as well as the focus groups. I think when you go through this exercise, you have to constantly reevaluate those results and dig deeper and really think about them, particularly when you have a diverse community. You can't generalize necessarily across the whole town. There are different needs within different demographics, and that takes some thinking of how you accomplish that and how you go about improving that. And again, the one thing with regard to the survey results and the focus groups and going through this exercise and becoming an age-friendly community is, it forces you to, not forces you, but it makes you think about the 8 domains of livability, that conceptual model that AARP has put out, and and makes you think about, okay, how are you going to take the resources you have in your township and marry those two together so that something practical comes out of it in terms of servicing our older seniors in the community across all the diverse groups that we have. And I just wanted to point to just one more thing, and Liliana, if you'd like to address it, is just speaking with regard to the practical aspect, a new kind of or a continuing program that's been improved a bit, which has to do with transportation with regard to the Uber service that's been offered. So if you'd like to talk about that, Liliana, I think that's important to convey.
You know, it is important. That's how we started, but we only have 3 minutes, and I want to leave questions for people to.
Right, okay.
If you could move on to the next slide, which is our last slide, Jen. What is very, that is true. This is how we started actually applying for the age-friendly grant, was through our transportation, which we actually offer senior transportation through our department already, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. But, you know, as you probably know, this is there's needs need to be augmented. There's people that there's all additional that have additional needs for transportation. One thing that came out of the survey was potentially needing to augment our transportation in evenings or even on the weekends. So we are currently working with Essex County Transportation on Uber and Lyfts for our seniors. And we have a pilot program going on. If you have questions about that, I can talk to you later. A pilot program going on about that we've been doing to see how it works, because as you know, seniors don't have smartphones, so we go through Ride for Life or Easy Ride, and that makes it a lot easier. But to finish this section of the presentation, the action plan was the next step. Once you have all the survey findings, compile all the data, you put together an action plan, and that's what we needed to do to then to guide the initiative. So we knew what the next steps we should take and what we should focus on as we move forward. Then, of course, the last thing that we need to do is the application to the AARP, right? The network. You need to have the action plan, the letter of commitment, the resolution, and an ordinance to establish to establish a committee. So all of these are signed and supported by our mayor, town council, and town manager. So we're glad to say that we were approved and received our AARP certification back July 21st of this year. So we're very happy about that. And I am so sorry. I mean, are there any questions? We had our emails. I know they're recording this, so you guys can access the emails on there. And we're in Livingston, so you'll be able to get information and reach us at some if you have any questions, if you're going through this process in your community. So thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right, well, I don't know how much, 30 seconds. Any questions during that time? I don't know if we could, okay.
Hi, I was just wondering how you all funded the startup for this initiative.
With the Grotto Fund. The Grotto Fund.
Grotto?
That was the Grotto
Grotto.
Fund.
GROTTA. A.
Okay.
GROTTA. Yep.
They're
Okay,
part of this
thank you.
conference. They're funding this conference too.
Okay. And they